Hi everyone! Welcome to a Folk Art Calendar Blanket 2019 bonus applique. Bonus means that you can include them if you want to in your 2019 calendar blanket, or you can skip it. I am going to actually make a few and sew them onto my blanket today because I'm going to put them along the edge of my forest, and I'll show you more about that in a little bit. And you can do the same thing that I'm doing, or you can make a few and save them to see if you want to use them, or of course you can make a few of these little toadstools and add them to other little projects you might have in the works. After all, the fall is here. You don't need very much yarn or time to make some of these toadstools. Just a few yards of each color, white or red, will suffice. I'm using a size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. It's the same yarn I'm using for the rest of my blanket. You need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the hook is the same one, a 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9 in the US, a size 5 in the UK. And if you haven't already subscribed, click that button and the bell so you never miss another bonus episode. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. Our little toadstools are very short and quick to make. We're going to start with the stem of the toadstool. So you're going to take your white yarn and make a slip knot. And you're going to chain 4 to begin. Once you have 4 chains, you're going to skip the first chain from the hook and half double crochet into the second chain. You're going to half double crochet into each of the next 2 chains, and at the end of row 1 you'll have 3 half double crochet. It's a very short row 1. There's row 1. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to half double crochet in each of those 3 stitches all the way back. So 3 half double crochet in row 2 as well. Don't forget that your last half double crochet might just be kind of curving down the edge a little bit. Be sure not to miss it. That's it for the stem. You want to snip yourself a longish tail, maybe 8 or 9 inches, enough that you can sew all the way around 3 sides of it. And then you can take your yarn needle and weave that little short tail in across some of the stitches along the back until it disappears. Next, we're going to make the little toadstool topper. So you're going to take your red yarn. We're going to begin with a slip knot. And we're going to chain 6. Once you have 6 chains, you're going to skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the second chain. Try to keep things not too tight but not too loose. We're going to single crochet into the next chain. Into the third chain, or the middle chain here, we're going to work 3 different stitches. We're going to work a half double crochet, a double crochet into the same chain, and a half double crochet again. So half double crochet, half double crochet into that third chain. We're going to single crochet into the next chain, and we're going to slip stitch into the last chain. So you skip the first chain from the hook, you work slip stitch, single crochet, half double half, single crochet, slip stitch. Chain 1, and we're going to work up the bottom of our little foundation chain row. We have 5 stitches, or the underside of 5 stitches, that we want to single crochet across. So if you want, you can work over top of your little short tail. It saves you having to weave it in later. We're going to single crochet into the underside of those 5 chains that we worked across the top of our foundation chain row. So you're single crocheting into each of those 5 stitches, or those 5 underside chains. You want to keep things moderately tight, not too tight but not too loose either. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch back into the same place that we worked our last single crochet. So now you can flip it upside down or right side up, and you should have a little mound that looks like the top of a toadstool. Cut yourself a nice long string, enough that you can sew all the way around the edge of your toadstool top. Fasten off, and if you didn't already work over top of your short tail, take a moment to weave that in so it's out of your way. And next we're going to embroider some French knots. We're going to do a little bit of French knot embroidery across the top of our toadstool. So I've worked about 5 of these little French knots in across the top of it, sort of randomly placed. We did French knots a little while ago in one of the other calendar blanket applique tutorials, but I'm going to show you how to do that again. And you can see that it's nice and messy across the back. It doesn't matter. I've knotted my 2 tails together. This isn't going to show, so don't worry about the back of your toadstool looking neat and tidy. It doesn't have to. So what you want to do is cut a length of white yarn, thread up your yarn needle, and grab the top of your toadstool. You're going to take your needle and run it from back to front, anywhere you want to work one of your 5 French knots. Leave a little bit of yarn out the back, and I find it works a little easier if you lay your piece down on a hard surface so that you can hold it down with your hand and also hold your needle as close to the surface as you can. We're going to wrap our yarn around our needle 3 times and try to hold it as tightly as possible. I like to hold it with my finger, and then I take a hold of my needle. I'm still pressing against all my work, so I'm holding the needle, I'm holding the wrapped yarn, and I just pull the yarn all the way through. Now the first one might be a little bit tricky. It might want to come back out on you. Don't worry, you can always tug back on that little tail you left behind. And then you just take your needle back down through the fabric on the other side of a loop. Don't go back down through the same hole because you don't want it to get pulled through to the back. And that is the first little polka dot on the top of your toadstool. The next few are a little easier, so you can pick another spot that's kind of random. Don't pull too tightly because you don't want to end up cinching the top of your toadstool. Lay your needle down, press everything against your work surface as tightly as you can. Wrap 3 loops around your yarn needle, hold it down, and pull your needle through nice and tight. And then you can take your needle to the back of the top of your toadstool and just tighten up that knot. You can go ahead and add 3 more French knots randomly across the top of your toadstool, and then we'll knot everything on the end and trim our ends. Once you've added as many little French knot polka dots as you think you want to include on the top of your toadstool, and of course they can be, the more random the better because that's what makes them look natural, just bring your yarn to the back, tie those 2 ends together nice and tight. Don't do it so that it's so tight that it sort of changes the shape of the front of your toadstool, but as tight a knot as you can get. And then just trim your ends, and don't worry about how messy the back looks because it's not going to show. And there's the top of our little toadstool. So we've got a top, we've got a bottom. Now all we have to do is sew it on. You can add as many little toadstools to your forest as you want. I'm going to start with 3, and then I might wait till the end of the blanket to decide if I want to add a few more, depending on how busy or not so busy I feel the blanket is. This is a bonus once again, so you can add the toadstools or not. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to place just 3 of them to start with along the front edge of my forest. Once you've got them all settled into place and you know where you want them, you're going to sew them down much like you did the trees. You're going to start with the stem. You're going to sew all the way around the edge of the stem using the long tail left on that, and then you can overlap the top part to the stem and sew all the way around the edge of that. So very, very basic little bit of applique. I'm going to show you once again how to pick up that top loop on the blanket. You thread up that long tail left behind on the piece of your applique that you're sewing down, and you want to pick up the top facing loop of the blanket that is pretty much directly beneath the edge of your applique. So this will help keep your stitches from looking less like sewing stitches, and of course they won't show through to the back side of your blanket because you're only using the top facing edge. So you pick up the top facing loop of a stitch, the edge of the applique, And you're going to do that all the way around for every single piece. Once you've sewn all the way around a piece, you make a tiny little knot back at the beginning and then weave the rest of the tail in through some of those stitches. Trim any excess. And just like we did with the trees, we take the top part of our little toadstool. You want to layer it just over the top edge of the stem. And then same thing, thread up that long tail, sew all the way around the edge. You can use the top facing loops of the stem now as you go across the top of the stem. Knot, weave that little tail in, and trim any excess. And there we go. That's 3 little toadstool mushrooms for my forest. I'll probably add a few more. I love the sort of fairy tale magical quality it gives them. And since it's the fall, I find these little toadstools are popping up all over the place. I hope you enjoyed making this little toadstool applique along with us today, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye!
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.